In order to make a kitchen, we first need kitchen assets. We're making everything ourselves, but if you want to skip this part, it's also possible to get the assets on Gumroad for a small price. So let's get started straight away. So first of all, I'm going to select this blender and I'm going to select the fruit as well right over here, and I will bring it into a new file so we can determine the scale of the objects that we need. Alright, so right now I'm in this file and I will paste this blender and the fruit right over here. Now we need to make a kitchen, but we need to have the right scale because otherwise the lighting will look weird and things will look out of place. So we are going to make it on scale. There we go. We're going to make a mesh. Let's bring this upwards. Let's open the panel right here, pressing N, and we can check out the dimensions. So 2 meters would be about 14 centimeters higher than I am. And I think my ceiling is just a little bit higher than that. So I'm going to do 2 meter 90 right over here. And this will actually be the size of this room. Now, as you can see, our blender is humongous. So it's very big and we definitely don't want that in this case. I'm going to make the x-axis 5 meters. I think that's a nice and normal size for a room. And I will make the y-axis, let's say 6 meters. And it's a pretty big room. But as you can see, our blender is still bigger than all of that. So I will have to select all of this in the blender, including this plane. Press M, separate it, bring it into a new collection, blender. Alright, so now we can select this more easily. And I will go over here, scale it down. And now we should probably determine what size our kitchen will be. So I will add another cube right over there. And this is 2 meters by 2 meters. I think that's a bit too tall. So I'm going to set it to 1.5. So I'm going to bring this down and let's remove this for now. So this is basically the size of our kitchen table. So let's select the blender once again. Bring this upwards. Would this be the correct size of a blender on this kitchen part? That could be just a little bit bigger. So I'm going to select the objects, just going to scale it up a bit, GZ. And I'm not using actual measurements for this, I'm just trying to do it by eye and what I think is logical. So something like this should work out fine. Now I'm going to bring this, duplicate it, bring it over to this side, make it a bit thinner and stretch it all the way out until there, because it's going to be a separate plane. Let's press 1 first and let's add the camera. Control-Alt-0. But I think the lens of the camera is a bit too wide, so I'm going to zoom it in so we don't have to model an entire kitchen that looks perfect and all. We are just going to use a part of the kitchen. So let's do 85 millimeters. Now all we have to do is make sure we have some parts over here or over here. So we don't have to model the entire kitchen with a fridge and some cabinets right over here and stuff like that. We are just going to do it the easy way in order to deceive our audience into thinking that they are in a kitchen, but actually it's just a small set like they do on television. All right, kitchen assets. So we've got the fruit as well, so let's bring that over here. So we can bring that down. Oh, as you notice, when you scale the kiwi down, the particle for the hair system is going to be too long. So we are going to have to change that manually. But I'm going to scale this down first, bring it right over here, go into the particle system and decrease the hair length to something like this. It should be dark when we enter into this mode, and it is. We only have the world lighting, it's on Eevee, I'm going to set it to cycles, GPU compute, and now it's entirely black. And we don't want that actually, so I'm going to bring in a light for now so we can see what we're doing. So I'm going to open up this part right here, because usually in interior renders you have a light coming from the side. It's just a very popular thing to do. So I'm going to make a loop cut right over here, and maybe a loop cut right over there. Then I will select this, Control-A, apply the scale, press I, inset this, E and X to delete the faces. And then I will add an HDRI. Now we're going to have to increase the strength of this by quite a bit, or else it will be quite noisy, because we are mainly relying on light bounces in the area itself, because the wall is all enclosed and there's light coming in from one side, and now this is basically what it looks like. So now we are going to decide on an HDRI later on. I'm just going to use this as a reference for our lighting, and this is what it looks like right now. We can always play around with light linking function in Blender later on if we do not like something, so it's not a problem at all. I'm going in here and we have to make some assets. So the first thing I'm going to make, I'm going to place my 3D cursor right over here. I will add a cylinder, and this is going to be a very simple shape. It's not going to be hard at all. It's going to be the simplest shape that we are going to model today. As Z, bring this down, make it a bit smaller, like so. Then go into edit mode, take this, scale it outwards, something like so. Upwards just a little bit, press I, E, and scale it inwards until it looks like this. And now we've got some type of plate. I'm going to add a subdivision surface modifier to it. Bring it upwards, shade it smooth. So we've got a little plate right over here that we can use to place some objects into if we'd like. Now I'm going to make some olive oil. So I'm going to press Shift A, Image, References, and go to Downloads where I've got my olive oil right over here. I'm going to bring it in here. It's a bit too large, doesn't really matter though. I'm going to press Alt R, RX 90, and now it looks like this. Let's click on 1 and into this mode so we can see what we are doing. Now this is the shape of the olive oil bottle. So I'm going to bring in a cube. Let's bring it right over there. Let's scale it. And now basically all we have to do is follow this shape until it is correct. E, G and Z, bring this down all the way over here. E, Z, S, E, Z, something like so. And then I will select the top part. E, bring it over here. Now scale it inwards. Just follow the reference. This is a very easy asset to make. So I'm going to add 2 loop cuts. Then select all of this. Loop tools, circle. And now we've got a circle. I'm going to scale it down just a little bit. E, bring it upwards. E, bring it upwards. I'm not going to care about the reference too much. E and S, bring it in. E, S, bring it inwards, like so. And just play around with this until it looks somewhat correct. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's just going to be a small asset that we are going to be using. And now we've got a bottle of olive oil pretty quickly, not that hard. Just going to add a subdivision surface modifier to it, shade this smooth, and bring in an extra loop cut right over here maybe. So let's use this. Let's delete the reference image. Let's go over here into our camera mode, bring this down, set it on the table. It should be a bit smaller, I think. So I'm going to decrease the size. And we're going to texture this later, so don't worry. That is going to be done, and we're going to place an etiquette on it as well. So let's bring in a reference image, reference, and type cutting board. So I've got one right over here. I think this looks pretty cool. Dash, Alt R, RX 90. Let's have a look at this on 1. This is a very easy shape to make, so we are just going to do it easily. So let's bring in a cube. Let's scale it down. Let's scale it to this part, G and Z, bring it upwards. And now this is kind of correct. I'm going to do the entirety of this. Alt C, S and Y. It should be a lot thinner, of course. Let's add a inset. Press I to inset, all the way over here. Do it again, but this time all the way over here. I'm going to make some loop cuts, like so. A couple more like this. Take all of these, loop tools, circle. And before we do that, let's apply the scale first. Loop tools, circle. Then it looks like so. R, Y, I'm going to scale it down. Scale it on the x-axis. And I'm not going to care about this broken up mesh because it is not the most important model, to be honest. I'm not going to spend more time on it. That is a great lesson for you as well. Don't spend time on stuff that doesn't matter, all right? Lots of people make that mistake. Let's delete the faces, and let's delete all of this as well, by the way, and maybe even this entire side as well. Just rid of it. And now we only got this plane with our cool looking stuff on it. Let's press Ctrl 3, and now it already looks a bit softer. Let's add a solidify, or actually, let's just select all, E, and bring it over here, like so. Add a loop cut, and now we're pretty much done. Could add a loop cut right over here. Shade this smooth, add a loop cut right over there, add a loop cut right over there. And on the inside of this, we might want a loop cut as well. All right, so this is our cutting board. Very easy, shade this smooth. Let's delete the reference image. Let's take this, bring it back into our scene, RX 90, RC 90, and it's on the kitchen table now. So now we already got 3 assets and we're going to make a couple more. So hang in here and we're going to be done very quickly because all of these assets are very simple to make. All right, so now let's model the final parts and then we are going to texture everything and make sure it looks good. So I am going to make another one of these plates, but it's going to be a bit different. So in this case, I am going to use a cube. I'm going to scale it down, bring it over here. As Z, make it smaller. And now basically all we want to do is Ctrl A, apply the scale, select this, I to inset, bring it down, scale it just a little bit, then go into the modifier section, select bevel and add it. Increase the amount of segments and maybe change the amount to something a bit less drastic. Let's shade it smooth. Of course it doesn't work, so we need to add the normals, smooth by angle, and then ignore sharpness. scale it on the y-axis to make it look a bit like this. Then go over here, select the entire inner edge and give it a small bevel with only one segment. Now select the entire outer edge in edge select mode, scale it outwards just a little bit, something like this. And now we've got a little plate where a lot of other things can stand on. So that's why we made that. Now I'm going to press Shift A and make a UV sphere, scale it down, bring it over here, bring it upwards. And maybe we can scale it on the Z-axis just a little bit to give it this shape. Then I will go into edit mode, click on C. Now we can select this, right mouse click to disable it. Click on C again for the bottom side, like so. And now we've got both of those parts selected. And we can Alt S and scale it inwards a bit like so. Something like this should work out fine. Let's give it a small subdivision surface modifier, maybe Control 1. Shade to smooth. And now this kind of looks like a blue berry type of thing. It's not blue yet, but we are going to make it blue. Then let's make one more of these, but it's a bit different. So Shift A, add a cylinder, scale it down. Let's bring it over here. SC, SZ, like so. Go into edit mode. I to inset. E, bring it outwards. Then scale it out like something like so. E, bring this inwards all the way down. Scale it in. I once again. E, and let's make a bit of a blade type thing. I once again, E to scale it inwards, like so. Give it a small subdivision surface modifier, and now it looks like this. Let's give it one more segment right over there. Select the inner part and press I. So now we've got one more plate that we can deal with. So bring it down, set it on the table. Make sure that this is straight. So let's bring it down. So let's make one more bowl. So Shift A, cylinder, let's bring it over there, scale it down, bring this down, scale it. GZ, bring it upwards, E, S, and now we pretty much already have a bowl like this. Bring it downwards, scale it, and that's pretty much done. Press 3, I, make it straight, and an extra loop cut right over here. So now it's populated over here, which looks quite a bit better, and we are going to add a cloth simulation as well. I'm first going to select our original cube and give it a collision right here in the physics tab. So collision, right over here. I'm going to increase the friction to 10. Damping can be increased as well. The thickness outer should be decreased and the inner can be decreased a bit as well. So now we have to add a plane. So mesh, plane, scale it down, bring it over here. Scale it on the y-axis to give it a bit more of that shape. Bring it over there. Go into edit mode. One loop cut, Control R. Select all by pressing A. Subdivide and subdivide it 20 times. So now I'm going to rotate it by 90 degrees, give it a cloth simulation, quality steps to 10, self collisions can be turned on, decrease the distance by quite a bit, and the distance of the object collisions can also be changed to 0.001, set the quality to 5. Now before we do the cloth simulation that we are going to apply, I'm going into edit mode, press U and unwrap, because now we already have this unwrapped, and later on when we apply this, things will look a bit funky if we unwrap it later. So Shift A, let's play this. And it looks like this. Not bad. I think somewhere over here can be nice. So I will go into the modifiers tab and apply this cloth modifier. Then I will shade it smooth, give it 2 levels of subdivision by pressing Ctrl 2. And now we've got our cloth simulation ready right over here. So now that we have all the objects, all that's left to do is to texture everything and make sure that it's in its place, ready for the next render. So let's start with the cloth first. I'm going to press on New. Go to the principal BSDF, and you need to have Node Wrangler enabled for this, but Control Shift T, and then we can select the texture. I'm going to select Fabric 51, which you can get on Polyhaven. And now all we have to do is go into the UV editor, press A, select this button so we can see what we're doing. A, scale it up, and make sure it looks like a cloth. And that looks fine for what I am trying to do. Then we're going over to the cutting board. So I'm going to select the cutting board right over here, Control Shift T, Wood 58. Let's see what it looks like. Unwrap it, Q projection. And we're going to add a hue, saturation and value. I'm going to increase the value just a bit because I want it to be brighter. I will then select this plate, press on New, go over here, increase the metallic, decrease the roughness a bit and call it a day. Then I will select this object right over here, which is a bowl. I'm going over here, press New, Principal BSDF, remove it, glass, BSDF, let's plug it in here. And now we've got a glass type of bowl. Pretty interesting looking. Maybe decrease the IOR just a little bit and increase the roughness. So now I will select this part and I'm going to press on New. Going to make the color a bit bluish. Decrease the roughness. So now let's take this board, press new, Ctrl-Shift-T to bring in another wood texture. Let's try wood 60. Pretty decent to me, so I'm going to roll with it. So now let's texture this berry. Let's go over here, press on new. Let's add a noise texture right over here. Let's add a color ramp as well. Factor into the factor, color into the color. Let's make this a bit of a bluish tone. So let's increase this. Let's make it a bit more blue, like so. Switch these colors. Take the entire left color, make it very dark and bluish as well. And now we've got this type of effect going on. Looking pretty fine to me. You can play around with the scale of this, so let's see what it looks like. Maybe make it a bit bigger, something like so. Increase the detail, increase the roughness to 0.58, something like that. Now all we have to do is texture the olive oil. So I'm going to take this, go into edit mode, and let's select these top parts and press Ctrl++ until we get the entire cap. Plus in the material, assign this, Ctrl-I, give it a new material, and assign it as well. So let's first do the bottle cap. Select this material, make it red, increase the metallic, decrease the roughness a bit to make it look like this. And now we can go over into this material, and perhaps we want to make it a bit more glass-like. So I'm going to add a glass BSDF, like so, glass into the surface, and this is now our glass. Now I want this to have an inside as well, so I'm going back into edit mode, and I will select the part right over here, Ctrl++++++ until we get the entire part where we want the liquid to be at. So I'm going to duplicate this, Shift-D, press OK, P, separate the selection, and now we've got an extra selection right over here. I'm going to press A on all of this, Alt-S, and scale it down until it fits inside of the bottle, like so, and give it its own material. So I'm going to copy this, go over here, Alt-Z, so we can look through it, select this entire edge and give it an icon by pressing F. Now let's give it a bit of an orange oily color, right over here, and we should increase the roughness. So I'm going right over here and I will press Shift-S, cursor to selected. Let's add a plane, scale it down until it fits on the bottle. So RX 90, bring it over to this side, SZ, scale it upwards, and we could give it a modifier, namely solidify modifier, so it has a little bit of thickness. See what that looks like. G and Y, bring it outwards. And we should shrink wrap this to the entire mesh. So I'm going to scale it down just a little bit, add a shrink wrap modifier. Shrink wrap. Select our object right over here, and now it should be shrink wrapped to this object, but it doesn't really have enough geometry. So I'm going into edit mode and give it some geometry. And now as you can see, it is bending along with the object, which is what we want. Now I'm going to press A, U, Q projection, press new, give us a new material, Ctrl-T, open an image, downloads, and take our olive oil image. You can take whatever olive oil you find. Let's go into the UV editor, select this, and let's make sure that it only fits on this entire plane. And now we've got a bottle of olive oil as well. So now let's add some of these fruits to the bowls and make sure that it looks pretty cool. I'm going to select this fruit, I'm going to make a new collection and call it berry. I will take this, scale it down to a reasonable size, something like so, duplicate it and rotate it, and make sure that we do that quite a few times in order to fill up this bowl. So we can also select multiple berries, rotate it. We can also deform them just a little bit, so scale them on some axes, and maybe go into edit mode, select some of this, proportional editing, make sure it's just a little bit deformed. That's a bit different than some of the others, like this. You can add some more if you like. I'm going to add some more, but it's pretty boring, so I'm not going to show you how to do that. You pretty much know how to duplicate and bring in some more berries into this bowl. Make another one, RC. Let's go into edit mode, let's select some stuff and play around with the shape of the strawberry, and this will make things a bit more randomized and real looking. I'm going to speed up through this process because I think it's pretty obvious what you need to do. You just need to duplicate these strawberries and make sure that they are aligned and don't intersect with each other too much, and I trust that you can do this. So now we've got some objects to work with. In the previous tutorial we also made some glass, and we're going to use that to populate this even further and make sure that it looks good. And in the next video we are going to make a kitchen that we can use in our shots to have the actual product animation take place in. All of these assets were pretty easy to create, so now we have enough assets to make an actual kitchen. Have a look at the ultimate Gobopack and GeoLights Pro, the newest and most unique lighting solution in Blender. Subscribe, and I'll see you in this video next.